is the moment.
The Bachelorette is back. And the power
I'm gonna fall in love.
is in Jen's hands.
And I'm gonna do it my way.
ABC tonight.
Everything about her is great.
I feel so special.
Jen's looking like a queen.
My men are very, very hot.
Someone call 911. You are looking so fired.
This is the beginning of a new era.
The Bachelorette. All new tonight, 8/7 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
This program contains subject matter and language that may be disturbing to some viewers. Your discretion is advised.
Savaged. Unfiltered. Your host, Michael Gardner.
To another edition of Savaged Unfiltered with Michael Gardner, guys. This show is starting to grow. It is. I just want to say thank you to the audience that tuned in to yesterday's with author and writer. We welcome them back to the show. We were talking something different other than politics. Yes, folks, politics is my life. I think I sweat politics. It comes out of my pores. But yesterday we were joined by Branch Isolé, and we had the discussion about coffee shop talk, finding small talk in poems in everyday life. And the conversation I had with Branch was very, very intriguing, fascinating, and interesting. So I want to thank the audience and the people around the world that tuned in. We have some stats here we're going to bring into the show before we kick off with today's topics. Just yesterday's episode on Spotify reached over, so far, folks, so far, and it's climbing, over 9,800 views. The views are also considered downloads too. So 9,800 worldwide so far. You know, I'll take it. Hey, it's a good start. Reaching Ireland, folks, at 30%. Okay. Now these are the countries that viewed it, and that's holding the dominant scale on that episode. Ireland at 30%. USA just below Ireland at 20%. Canada sharing the same 20%, and coming in very, very strangely. But hey, thank you very much. Thank you. Switzerland at 30%. So thank you to the folks over there in Switzerland. I guess they like their American politics and their different different topics that we share on the show. Reaching 91% for males, 7% for female, and small bracket, folks, non-gender, right? Your transgender or transvestites or however you want to say, 2%. So, okay, thank you. That's all I can say is thank you, right? I'm glad we enlightened their mindsets to some type of crazy morale. But guys, joining us here on the panel here once again, our good friend of the show and a good friend off the show here, Joseph M. Lenard, the author of Terror Strikes Coming to a City Near You. Welcome back to the panel, Joseph. How are you doing this afternoon?
Doing good, Michael. Thank you for having me back again. And you mentioned Switzerland, and it brought to mind something odd. And like you said, you didn't talk politics the other day. Maybe one day we can have an episode on movies. But unfortunately, with Hollywood, it would go back to politics too. But you reminded me when you said Switzerland of a movie back in the 80s. I'm not a huge Madonna fan. I mean, she was talented. She had some good music. But she had a movie in the 80s called Who's That Girl? Hilarious film. Oh, if you haven't seen it, you want to throw back a great, hilarious film. But she plays a young con artist. And she goes into a gift shop, a jewelry store with the person she's with. I don't want to give away the movie, and the person behind the counter asks her about school, and he asks, "Was it Swiss?" And she says it was the Swissest, as if trying to use it as a slang term for great. But yeah, you mentioned Switzerland, it immediately took me back to that funny movie.
Oh yeah, like I said, folks, and Joseph here. We didn't talk politics, political viewpoints, or agendas or thoughts. Did not arise yesterday on the show. Yes, folks, I do. Sometimes take a break from the political specter of this world. I like to get into other topics, and Joseph just brought up a great idea. Hopefully, very soon in the near future, we can have an episode about movies. Past movies, future movies, whatever. I'd love to have that conversation with you, Joseph, because
I'm a big movie buff. So yeah, I'm kind of Wham Radio out of Ann Arbor. May she rest in peace, Linda, lovely Linda, as we called her. Used to have a show called The American Dream, and I was kind of the unofficial Wham Radio movie guy, and I would call in and talk about movies on her show all the time. So I'm well versed in talking about movies, and yeah, unfortunately, a lot of them delve into politics nowadays, with all the woke stuff in them.
Oh yeah, by far. I'm sure the conversation we would have about movies, I'm sorry to say, Joseph, and the folks that are listening to the show today, it may dive into political viewpoints because, I mean, there are going to be some movies that come across that are political. You got some great movies that dove into that political angle. The latest, movies, my personal favorite political movies, Air Force One.
Yeah.
Oh,
Harrison Ford. That is a great classic. I like all those Clancy films turned movies, but my favorite film has nothing to do with politics, thankfully, of all time is called The 13th Floor. So if you're into digging up old movies, it came out in 99 before The Matrix. And it's the Matrix movie before The Matrix ever actually happened. And it's actually a semi-plausible movie. Think SimCity meets virtual reality together. It's part drama, it's part romance, it's part crime, it's part thriller, it's part sci-fi. To me, it's the most well-rounded movie I've ever seen made in my life. It comes from Roland Emmerich, who is the mastermind behind Stargate and Independence Day. So he's had blockbusters. That was to be a blockbuster that year, but unfortunately, The Matrix kind of supplanted it. And it has Gretchen Mol, Craig Bierko, Armin Mueller-Stahl. I'm drawing Dennis Haysbert. It's a great movie, a great cast, great acting, great script. But that's not what we came to talk about today.
No, and thank you for kind of cutting it off the script, so to speak, for today's episode, Joseph. But we're going to take that up to consideration. Mackenzie, please write that down in notation. My new producer of the show and girlfriend here, she does a tremendous job. Thank you very much, Mackenzie. Please write that down. We're going to bring Joseph back here. We're going to have that really, really awesome conversation with movies. But what we came to talk about today, guys, is several topics. And I'm going to let the listeners know we haven't really came up with an episode title for this. I'm thinking about it's in the works. Let's just say before the episode recording with myself and Joseph is over today, we will have an episode title and, of course, episode poster that we upload to Anchor FM, and they do their tremendous magic and upload it to all the platforms. But we're going to talk about several topics. I want to dig into the latest coming out of the White House just yesterday. Did anybody catch the Obama speech? Now, Barack Obama was at the White House. They did this speech, and it was a ceremony, Joseph. Did you catch it? It was actually done in the East Room by former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama.
especially after you've gone and people forget all the stuff they didn't like about you. But what you realize when you're sitting behind that desk, and what I want people to remember about Michelle and me, is that presidents and first ladies are human beings like everyone else. We have our gifts, we have our flaws. You've all experienced mine. We have good days and bad days. We feel the same joy and sadness, frustration and hope. And while it takes a certain amount of self-confidence to be president, there are nights where we lie awake wondering if this or that decision was the right one. I've always described the presidency as a relay race. You take the baton from someone, you run your leg as hard and as well as you can, and then you hand it off to someone else, knowing that your work will be incomplete. The portraits hanging in the White House chronicle the runners in that race. Each of us tasked with trying to bring the country we love closer to its highest aspirations. And when future generations walk these halls and look up at these portraits, I hope they get a better, honest sense of who Michelle and I were. And I hope they leave with a deeper understanding that if we could make it here, maybe they can too. They can do remarkable
Savaged, unfiltered.
And did you notice what they unveiled, Joseph?
Yes, I tuned in just long enough so I could see the ugly portrait. Oh my God, were they ugly? And you know what? It just goes to show further about the Obamas, how much they abhor America and our traditions. They look like they commissioned Hunter Biden to do those paintings.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they unveiled this portrait here. That's what I'm getting at, folks. Now, these portraits were literally unveiled just yesterday in the East Room, and the paintings were to be resembled the former president, Barack Obama, former First Lady, Michelle Obama. And these are actual paintings that they're going to put up on the walls in the East Room, okay, along other portraits that came before them.
They're dignified presidents. And again, these ugly things will take down the value of the dignified works of art that were done for other former presidents with this modern garbage. I mean, Obama's, if you haven't seen it, you got to look it up online. It literally looks like a Polaroid Instamatic shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually looking for, I'm actually looking in the front of the Wall Street Journal, guys. You can hear in the background if the sound effects are coming through with the Obama portraits, with, Barack Obama, his hands are in his pockets, Michelle just kind of in a blue dress, just kind of lounging out on a very, old tradition type of White House furnishing there. But, I want to make it said here on the show, this was the first time Mr. and Mrs. Obama had returned to the White House since they left in 2017. I'm sure you're aware of that, Joseph. Yeah. This is the first visit. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing, since we're doing this audio and not visual, you can't show a picture or the scowl on Michelle Obama's face. Again, like she showed for the first time in her life, she was proud of America because they elected Barack Insane Obama, to the president. The scowl on her face showing the disdain and disgust for you peasants out there who don't appreciate the Obamas,
Yeah, I could agree with that, but there's also some demeanor body vocabulary that came out of the former president, and we're going to get that in just in a minute here. Some of the words that he had used, which I think is a total disgrace and disrespect to the former administration prior to Joe Biden taking office. Now, Mr. Biden, folks, I do want to elaborate to the listeners that Mr. Obama, I'm going to try to be respectful. I don't respect his agendas, but I'll be respectful to this point here that Obama did visit earlier this year for an event honoring his signature health care law. He did visit the White House, but did not actually go into the White House. So what I mean by this is the first visit to actually inside the White House. This is actually the first visit since 2017, since he left and the transition between him and Trump took place. Now, when he went back for the signature healthcare law that Joe Biden literally reenacted when he took office back in 2021, just a year ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Today we deliver for the people of Florida yet again.
You saved our jobs.
And kept us going.
They tried to shut us down, but you saved our business.
$1,000 bonuses.
You had our backs.
And honored our service.
You led by facts, not fear.
And you let us decide.
You let me go to school.
You gave me a voice.
You put us first.
And didn't let them keep us apart.
You let us learn.
You let us compete.
All of us.
You protected our right to worship together in person.
And you raised our pay.
You protected our waters.
And kept Florida beautiful.
When they attacked you, you didn't cave.
You stood strong for Florida.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor.
Gracias, Gobernador DeSantis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis.
Savaged, unfiltered.
President and Dr. Biden, Vice President Harris, and Second Gentleman Emhoff, thank you so much for your hospitality. Thanks for letting us invite a few friends to the White House. We will try not to tear up the place. Someone once said that if you're looking for a friend in Washington, get a dog. Our family was lucky enough to have two wonderful dogs. But I was even luckier to have a chance to spend 8 years working day and night with a man who became a true partner and a true friend. Joe, it is now America's good fortune to have you as president. You've guided us.
Now, Joseph here and the listeners there, that the ceremony of the reason behind the Obamas coming into the White House was to mark the first presidential portrait unveiling at the White House since 2012. This is the first portrait to be shown in the White House in almost a decade. What's your thoughts on that, Joseph?
Well, my thought on that is that it is the timing, everyone should recognize, is not coincidental. And this isn't nostalgia over paintings. This is about deflection. This is about a Biden regime, epic failure after failure after failure. And his last speech, hate-filled speech, attacking Americans, not attacking other Republican leaders, but literally attacking U.S. citizens who may have voted a certain way. This is deflection. They know they are underwater. They know there is a red wave, if not a red tsunami, coming. And Obama, due to identity politics, not because he was a good president, still has a relatively good approval rating. So Biden's in trouble, dig up Barack Hussein Obama and Michelle and try to get some of the good vibes their way and keep the focus off the economy and the open border. The energy independence that they squandered, the Afghanistan failed withdrawal, issue after issue after issue. They're underwater in the polls. They're desperate to try to reshape these midterms in any sort of way possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned the border here, which I have a story here I want to bring into the show just in a short period of time here. But I want to get back onto the story here with this Obama visit. Now, folks, the White House portrait collection, which I found very, very interesting. Okay, it dates to a painting of former President George Washington that hangs in the East Room, and it's very interesting that in that room, Joseph, they picked a certain particular spot to put the two paintings of Mr. and Mrs. Obama right next to the former President George Washington. Now,
what a joke.
Yeah, hold that thought, Joseph. Now, this president, and the reason why I say it's interesting is that this president was, in many eyes, a president of divideness, radical rhetoric, and I mean, that's just to name a few. But to put it next to the very first president of this country,
the contrast, in a way, it's not a bad idea because the contrast for people to understand and need to grasp couldn't be more stark. You have Washington, a founder of the nation that Obama tried to, what was the term? Not reform, but you transform, fundamentally transform. Washington, the regal, prestigious, worthy of respect leader. And the painting itself wasn't even just about Washington. You could see D.C. in the background of Washington. You could see Washington with his sword, giving honor to those who fell to create this nation through a revolutionary war. You can see him regally gesturing off to the right with his hand to important information. It was more than about Washington. And Obama, again, it's like a Polaroid instamatic shot. It's him, only him, all about him. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yeah. And just to give a little history lesson of these White House portraits, folks, starting in the 1960s, the White House Historic Association sought to acquire portraits of past presidents and first ladies, not in the collection, and began financing portraits of recent presidents. Now, this was coming from the organization president, Stuart McLaurin, if I'm pronouncing his last name correct. Now, this gentleman is the actual president that runs this organization for that sector of the White House. He literally controls it all. But to come up with portraits of former president, former first lady, the Obamas, how come there wasn't any decision with possibly bringing in the Trumps, Donald and Melania?
Yeah.
Right? Which Joseph, that was brought up in the conversation. Okay. Where, if you remember, if you folks actually, took your time and, your energy and literally watched that, okay, that whole shabil that, Barack had said, Obama praised Mr. McCurdy. Now, Mr. McCurdy is the gentleman that painted the portrait. He's the gentleman that literally took his time and actually painted both portraits, both Barack and Michelle's. And he praised Mr. McCurdy, saying that he paints people exactly the way they are, for better or worse. And then Mrs. Obama referenced the fact that the Obamas were the first Black family.
Hey guys, this show is now on Amazon Music and Audible. That's right. Gonna want to check us out on Amazon Audible and Amazon Music. Great set of platforms. We are so honored and grateful to be part of the Amazon team. And we're honored that they are allowing us to be launched on those two major platforms. So thank you to our new friends here on Amazon Music and Audible.
Because it's all about identity politics, not about the country. It's all about them and sadly their identity. And I don't want to make this partisan. I want to say though, I hope Trump, when it comes time for his portrait, understands and learns from this and recognizes it's not just about his image. It's about the imagery that goes in and around it to be something more than self, about the nation, and things that would say making America great again without, certainly not having a stupid red hat or the slogan. But to not make this partisan, think back to JFK. Compare Barack and Michelle's to John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Jackie Onassis. Elegance, and even Bill Clinton. Just think about Bill Clinton. He didn't do anything this horrendous. And you can hear my phone ringing in the background.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
Even though I purposely set the phone ringer to silent, it's ringing anyway. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's election season, so yeah, I not only am I busy with shows regarding the book and topics like this, but the midterm elections coming up, because we obviously got a big election coming up here in Michigan, trying to get rid of Governor Wretched Whitler, who is as bad as Cuomo and Wolf in PA, and all these others that put sick patients into senior homes and resulted in countless deaths. So yeah, my phone's ringing off the hook these days.
I hear you. You mentioned Trump, Joseph. Do you actually think that when it comes to that time, that this department, this White House Historic Association, of what they're known by, will actually present Mr. Trump with his respected portrait along the side with Melania?
I think they have to. I really, they have been so petty so far. I mean, they may not want to, but it's a tradition. And even if the Democrats don't, the next Republican will certainly afford the Trump portraits.
Well, what about what about a lot of people are questioning the fact if Trump runs, which I hope he runs in 2024, he's making a lot of hints and a lot of little teases along his rallies. But do you think that, because a lot of people are questioning this, Joseph, that it possibly, do you think, now, if he does run, I don't want to see it right away. But if he doesn't run, if he does not run in 2024, do you think by 2024 or shortly after 2024, we may possibly see a presidential library under Trump?
Yeah. I mean, every president has their own library, but obviously they tried to go into Mar-a-Lago to prevent some of the documents that are damning to the FBI and the whole Hunter Biden cover-up and the Russian delusion garbage. I firmly believe he had some of those documents that were disclassified, that would have went into his library and everyone would have seen it exposed raw. That is, I think, the major mitigating factor of why they went in. It was a massive CYA operation.
Yeah, I remember that. And just to close this segment out here, because I want to get into the next one, a perfect thought came across former Judge Jeanine Pirro, which she is a co-host on Fox's The Five, just the other day said that, and she said this just the other day, and then she also said this reference to later in the afternoon with the speech from the Obamas, and she said that with the deflection that Obama had shown in this speech is literally disgusting, because if you remember, the speech came forward to this portrait being unrevealed, to the American public. And I quote, "What we are seeing is a reminder that there's a place for everyone in this country."
Or El Salvadorian president, that's the only way you're actually going to get the migration under control.
Judge, I get your perspective. I would like your perspective on the prosecution of the suspects that they have already apprehended, but there's got to be a connection, right? So they have the three people there, but there's obviously a chain that goes all the way back.
Well, I mean, what you do in a situation like that, and God bless California, they let these guys out as soon as they arrested them. I mean, these guys who have all the information, a lot of them on fentanyl, and these guys in particular, you get information from them. You pull them hard. And they can give you information as to smuggling, whether it's human smuggling or drug smuggling. They know what's going on here. And you just go up the chain. You scare them, you scare them, you scare their families. The feds do it every day. But I got to tell you something. I think in a bizarre way, I think the Biden administration could turn this thing around and say, see, the border is closed. We told you the border is secured. See, they had to smuggle them in like this, and they're dying to come in. Here's the bottom line that contradicts all of that. The president is in the United States Supreme Court fighting the Remain in Mexico policy. He doesn't want the illegals to remain in Mexico. He is fighting Title 42. He wants to open the border. The president fought with Governor Abbott because Governor Abbott was inspecting the 18-wheelers as they came in, and then everybody brought a lot of criticism in, said he was slowing down traffic. Governor Abbott could have found these people before they actually died. But no, we had to stop him. And so what this administration is doing is they're laying out the welcome mat every day in terms of what they do. So they can tell me until the cows come home, the border's secure, that the border's closed, and they're lying to all of us. They're busy flying them in, busing them into the interior. They're housing unaccompanied migrant children smuggled in by the cartels that they're accompanying and facilitating, hiring 800 Americans to staff a facility. They're quietly erasing immigration cases, giving de facto amnesty to 1 million illegals. I mean, the goal for them should be to stop the human trafficking and the drug smuggling, but they're doing just the opposite. So why is he trying so hard to fail? And why is it that he let it get this way? Is he that afraid of the progressives?
But you need to come through a merit-based system. And Judge Jeanine Pirro, Joseph, said that very, very accurately, pretty much mimicking the same demeanor from former President Donald Trump when he said that this country is open arms to any person in this world that want to better themselves and the opportunity that this country will bring to them. But you need to come here legally, not illegally.
Absolutely. And the left always lies about those of us on the right. We are very much for legal immigration, controlled, a certain number. There was literally a period during Eisenhower where we stopped all immigration because so many had come here and we needed them to have time to acclimate and, become part of the melting pot. And the left today wants us overrun and overwrought. It's part of their disdain for the country and attempts to fundamentally transform us from a constitutionally limited republic to a mobocracy. They are only concerned about what helps them win elections, and they literally do not care the suffering of United States citizens who can't get jobs or lose jobs to illegals who are here or are having to pay more on taxes. The Inflation Reduction Act, false name garbage, was really a tax increase bill, which will kick in after the midterms. Of course, they hid the taxes till after the midterms because they knew the red tsunami would wash them all away if America were to pay attention and discover that, and the media covers for them. But I mean, I know many legal immigrants, and to me, they're the greatest Americans because they escaped the manure hole countries. They knew firsthand what it was like. I got a good friend, Helen Szabo, who escaped from Hungary back when the Iron Curtain was still there. She was one that escaped. I mean, these people love America and understand, like Ronald Reagan said, we are the last place on earth. If we lose America, there is nowhere else left to go, and that we are only one generation of losing it. And we need to fight back to continue to be the shiny city on a hill.
Absolutely. And I think Joseph just literally gave us our title for the show today. Like I said, folks, we opened up the show with literally without a title. And I think the appropriate title for this show today is The Deflection from the Radical Left. So thank you very much, Joseph, for giving us that title. I think it fits this show very well for this episode. I want to get into this this next story, but before we get in there, guys, I want to make a quick break here. I got to get into a sponsor here. I want to say thank you to Liv Rishi. They've been supporting this show now for going on 4 months, so thank you very much, Liv Rishi. What is Liv Rishi, guys? It is a CBD oil company. They also specialize in cream products as well. For those who are not big fans of over-the-counter medication, Liv Rishi is most likely the alternate form of modern and natural medication. Head over to livrishi.com. Use the promo code, guys, at checkout, Savage Unfiltered. You're going to get 20% off your order. And don't forget to mention that you heard it on Savage Unfiltered podcast with Michael Gardner, so you can get that exclusive offer. Also, too, guys, I want to make a quick note here. Coming up on September 11th, we're going to have comedians Joan and Jane. They're also known as the Therapy Twins. Supposed to have them last month, but they had some prior commitments they had to attend to. So we're actually scheduled them for September 11th. So it's going to be this Sunday. There's going to be 2 shows, guys. The first show will be with them. The second show, we're going to have a special show with myself, the co-host here on the show, Soslin Timison. Hoping to get Jimmy. Haven't got a confirmation from Jimmy yet, but hopefully having him on the panel, as well as our good friend here that's chatting with us today, Joseph M. Lenard, will be part of that panel this Sunday. So check us out for the 2 really, really good shows coming up this Sunday.
I'm glad you're having 2 separate and distinct episodes on September 11, one comedic and one serious for the 9/11 remembrance. And, but having a comic relief that day is actually well timed. And I go into it in my book, Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. There's a comic relief chapter. And it's clear you recognize that no matter how serious life is, we still have to try to maintain some sense of humor. Otherwise, we'll be curled up in the fetal position in a corner crying 24/7.
Oh, absolutely, Joseph. And I think delivering that special episode of 9/11 21 years later, because it's been 21 years later. I'm going to basically represent that show very, very accurately. And I'm telling you right now, folks, some of the show will be sad, but some of it will be very resourceable, if I may use those words. Because the reason why I say that is because I happened to live in Lower Manhattan 21 years ago. I was a young man. I was 19 years old, living in a very, very small apartment, literally on the Lower East Side. As you get through the Holland Tunnel, everybody, if you kind of know that area, or if you're listening to the show and you live in Manhattan, right by Canal Street and Broadway, which is also known as Lower Manhattan. And that's right where Chinatown literally begins. A horrific day, I may add. I was living in that city, and I don't want to go too much into it. I don't want to give spoilers on my show, but I just want to let the listeners know, please tune into that show, because it's going to be a very, very, very special show. We're going to have a lot of special plugins to this show. A library. I'll give one spoiler here on the show. I just want to let the listeners know that there are some personal clips that I saved now 21 years later that I will air on the show that I experienced firsthand. Now, some of it you will hear my voice in it. Some of it you will not, because of the distraught audio, because it was very loud, almost like if you were in a war zone. That's how loud it was, as the buildings were basically deteriorating, coming down, and the smoke and sirens and everything. So I just want to let the listeners know that the audio will be a little distraught in the plugins. But Joseph, I want to get into this next topic here, because I don't want to, bring in too much of the 9/11 segment here for this Sunday. But you mentioned the wall, right? I want to get into this wall segment here with you, Joseph, with new state charges coming after Steve Bannon for this wall campaign. Did you read into this article at all?
I have not read the article, but I am familiar with the situation. It's been ongoing for a while. I myself personally donated. There were a couple of different wall funds. GoFundMe pulled it down, and they did it. They had to move it elsewhere. But yeah, I myself donated, and they're claiming that Steve Bannon somehow misappropriated $1 million out of the $25-ish million fund. Now,
holy shit!
Yeah, I'm not casting any judgment here one way or the other. I'm waiting to hear facts and evidence, not just more witch hunt, baseless accusations, as I would suspect at first this is. It's an all-out attack to get him any way they can. And Trump pardoned him regarding federal issues, but that doesn't apply to state charges in this case. And
Well, yeah, Joseph, hold that thought. You just mentioned he pardoned him. With that being said, do you agree with former President Trump pardoning him with that whole thing behind it?
with the charges that were being levied, and again, it was all part of a much broader witch hunt. Yes, I agree with him wholeheartedly doing that.
Yeah. Well, just to dig into the story. Yeah, hold on, Joseph. Just to dig into the story a little bit more, the former Trump advisor, right, Steve Bannon, is now expected to face New York State criminal charges this upcoming Thursday. That's actually tomorrow, following an investigation into a crowdfunding campaign, which we kind of went into a little bit, relating to the GoFundMe, to build a wall along the southern U.S. border, right? Now, according to people familiar with the matter, Mr. Bannon is scheduled to surrender to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office this upcoming Thursday morning, tomorrow. The exact charges right now are not to be determined, but the indictment is currently under seal, according to the people. Wow.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I'm a rule of law conservative constitutionalist Republican. I mean, so I don't say giving out pardons lightly. I think it was warranted in that case, but I want to make absolutely clear, I am not a hyper-partisan hack. Believe me, if a Republican commits a heinous crime, I want them locked up like I want anybody else locked up. So, I'm sure there might be some out there who will try to, paint me with a broad brush and say, well, anytime a Republican does anything, he's all for it and willing to let it go. No, false. You could see my articles. I have a long history on my social media. I have a long track record, rule of law, but like in all things, there can be exceptions to every rule.
Yeah, I got to say one thing, though, Joseph, well said, too, by the way. I got to say one thing, they want to bring up federal charges to a private campaign, okay, meaning, a GoFundMe, and I'm sure there was other funding type of organizations that were behind this. That's actually a crime if you're going to use a private campaign to try to, to bring funds towards the wall. Like, what's the criminal charges behind that? I don't understand that. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know.
I don't fully understand it yet either, which is why I'm saying we need to wait, hear the actual charges, and if there is indeed any evidence, or if it's just another witch hunt garbage, like the New York Attorney General going after Trump, trumping up, pun intended, anything and everything she can to try to levy a charge, whether it will stick or not. They just want the taint of a charge brought, whether it's valid or not, and whether they're found innocent or not. They want to taint them in hopes of tarnishing their reputation and their image and discrediting the whole MAGA movement.
Well, Joseph, yeah, I agree with you, man. Like, this is the same shit that happened, back in 2020. Remember this, folks, that federal prosecutors in New York did the exact same thing in August of 2020, which is a shy 2 years ago, to literally to try to undermine the election. It didn't work then. And what I mean by election, folks, is they were targeting Trump and the whole inner circle. And they tried to use it as a political a weapon, pretty much. And we've seen that come out, with the Mueller reports. We've seen it come out with the Russia collusion crap, and now this latest shit coming out of Mar-a-Lago. So I mean, to use a private fund, and to to pretty much levy around, mostly, a good solid MAGA Republicans, right? I think that's what they're calling us now, MAGA Republicans. We're the fucking threat of this damn country, which I think is bullshit. But to levy around that shit and then have them say, oh, they used a private campaign because they wanted to build the wall. What the hell is wrong with that? Unless it says it in the Constitution that you cannot use private campaigns or private organizations to fund stuff as that matter, as the wall, then yes, I understand. But if it does not state that in the Constitution, Joseph, then they can be talking about it.
And let's be clear. These were privately raised funds for sections of wall to go up on privately purchased, privately held land. We're not talking about forcing a private fund wall up on public land. That's not what happened here. They'll probably try to twist it. Private funds, private land, private built wall, contracted with people who wanted to do it. And this, again, it tells you everything you need to know about Democrats. Now, they are for sanctuary cities, and they're for abortion, but they insist it all has to come out of your pocket, stealing money from your pocket. Well, I'm a Christian, and I believe in charity. It has to come from home. As Jesus said in Corinthians, God loves a cheerful giver. And Democrats are all about stealing from you to give to their causes. If they truly believed in helping underprivileged people getting abortions, they could create a charity like we did in this case to help build the wall. They could create a charity and raise money from like-minded people like themselves. But no, we believe in personal responsibility. The left believes in theft, taxation, redistribution, socialism. This, again, the wall and this Bannon thing. Epitomizes the whole situation. And the difference between the left take, and use it for what I want versus the right and Christianity and Judaism and even Islam, of yourself. You give of yourself to be your brother's keeper.
Oh, absolutely. And you went right into the taxing, right? Which we're going to go into the third segment here on the show, guys. This new Democratic spending bill agenda. It seems to not go away. Now, just recently, Senator Chuck Schumer said the bill would probably extend the government funding through now mid-December. And that's perfect timing, right, Joseph? Right before Christmas.
Yeah.
This new Democratic spending crap right now funded beyond September with Ukraine aid likely to survive. But it's going to measure related to the COVID-19 aid. Along with that, Joseph, we're seeing energy with that. We're also seeing, the same-sex marriage crap that they're throwing into the bill. How much more spending does Congress need to put out there, Joseph?
Yeah, exactly. They literally, in 4 bills alone this year, spent $6 trillion added directly to the deficit and the debt, money we don't have, taxes they'll never collect, even though they're raising taxes. It's never taxes. It's always the spending. Every year the U.S. Treasury takes in more and more and more money, but every year the left exponentially spends far more than the increase in revenue and adds to the deficit and the debt. $6 trillion over and above every other year, yet that's not enough. None of that went to actually funding the government. Now they're talking about the supposed necessity to fund the government. Well, I say, go to hell. Shut the
Yeah.
damn government down the rest of the year for all I care.
Yeah, and you know, there's a good point here that I want to make. My good friend here and co-host here on the show, Jocelyn Timmerson, he's been sending me some screenshots after screenshots on his phone, which thank you, Sas. If you know, obviously you're going to be listening to the show after your big hearing there that you're at. The spending that the Democrats are doing right now is out of control. Literally, I mean, Sas has an entire notebook filled with just spending agenda after spending agenda. A lot of it has to do with this Ukraine crap, COVID-19 aid, energy aid. They want to fund same-sex marriages. They want to fund transgenderness. Grooming. It's disgusting of what's in this bill. Absolutely disgusting. Excuse me. A lot of what you see in this bill has nothing to do with what they're actually pushing it. Now, the Biden administration, literally, folks, needs to ask Congress. Excuse me. They have to ask Congress to include in the new spending bill some $47.1 billion in emergency spending, including money to fight the COVID-19 pandemic and the monkeypox outbreak, as well as, like I said, aid to Ukraine. More money, Joseph, that literally this country will never pay off. Never.
A lot of it is like the COVID. There are billions we haven't spent that they already authorized before. They want to authorize more to create a bigger slush fund for them to play with. This is money laundering, like you mentioned. You alluded to environmentalism through energy, more subsidies for wind and solar that failed. Another Solyndra who will go in business. They'll pour billions of dollars in. The Democrat donors who create the company and operate the company will money launder millions of dollars to themselves, which then in turn, some of those millions will be money laundered back to Democrat campaigns. But this is about slush funds because the Democrats know this is their last chance to fund all their wish list agenda items for any time soon to come after they lose control of the Congress this year.
Yeah, and I need to remind the listeners here, with this spending bill that they want to the funding through. Now we're told mid-December, which I think is just out of control, if you ask me. This is going to need 10 Republican votes to advance a bill. Now, 10 Republican votes. That's all it's going to need. Now, Joseph, that's interesting, isn't it? 10 Republican votes. Who do you think the Republicans that they're going to be turning to? Oh, I know. It's going to be your turncoats. It's going to be your ones that are not for America, right? You know who I'm talking about, Joseph.
Oh yeah.
Savaged, unfiltered.
In the Senate, it'll be Romney and Murkowski and Collins again, but they need 10 votes to get it past the filibuster in the Senate. So we're likely to cut some of this spending out, but we're not going to eliminate all of it, unfortunately. And let me again be clear. I am not a hyper-partisan hack. I have been complaining about deficits and debt since the Jimmy Carter years. Reagan did a little budget cutting, but not enough because he had a Democrat Congress and he had to cut deals. Trump, love him, voted for him, looking forward to voting for him again in 2024, but he didn't do a damn thing to try to really cut deficits and the debt. Now, I know he did, he didn't spend his whole White House budget.
I was about to say, Joseph, I think Trump was trying to accomplish something, But, I think that part, what you're referring to, didn't do a damn thing. That was starting to come out towards the end of his presidency. I think he was trying to get in there, but it was just too late. Yeah.
He should have vetoed every spending bill that came to his desk until like the third or fourth draft that actually did some real deficit reduction. He didn't do that. But also, to be fair, George W. Bush didn't do it either. Although he started to, then of course 9/11 happened and everything went out the window. And then of course at the end of Bush, we had the TARP fiasco. So it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans too. But no one created a higher budget deficit and debt than Barack Obama. He doubled, he quadrupled the deficit and doubled the overall debt in his 8 years.
Well, according to what we're talking about, you brought up Susan Collins, the Republican out of Maine, folks. According to her, now Susan Collins, basically a lead Republican negotiator of the marriage measure, said that it should not be attached to the CR. That would cause it to lose the Republican support, she's saying.
Of course not. It is non-germane to the bill, but they do this all the time. And like I said, this is their last chance at a wish list. They are going to light this up like a Christmas tree with ornament after ornament, things they know they cannot pass on an individual basis, hiding it in the bill to try, since this is deemed a must pass or the government will shut down. They know they can sneak through at least 70% of their wish list, and certain rhinos will cave and go along with it. Like I say, let the government shut down for a while then, because every time it has, people came to learn how little the government, the federal government, does for them. Because the military is still going to be funded. There are certain carve-outs, only certain things shut down. Shut down the IRS? Oh, hell yeah, let's do that. Shut down the fraudulent FBI as it stands now? Yeah, that's not going to stop your state and local crime-fighting agencies from still operating. It's not shut down the federal EPA. That's not going to shut down your state EPA. You would see, if it were to shut down for 6 months, how little added value these federal agencies really give you.
Yeah. I agree.
States' rights, 10th Amendment, the 17th Amendment destroyed that. States' rights, the states are sovereign. We're living in a fascistic, federal, dictatorial government, which is exactly what the Obamas and the Bidens want.
I mean, you nailed it right on the spot. I want to plug in this video here with Chuck Schumer, literally speaking about this, guys. I mean, literally. I mean, I thought we had enough of seeing him. Check this out, guys.
Thanks for coming. I hope everyone had a good August. I hope you missed us very badly. But we're back. Okay. I'm proud to be joined by Senator Stabenow, Warren, and Smith. Now, we had a great caucus meeting today. Democrats are excited. We feel we have strength. We have momentum. My caucus did incredible work back in their home states, promoting a slew of major bills that we passed. When you pass good legislation, you get good results. It's been a long time since the American people felt that Washington is capable of doing big things to meet big challenges and to meet their needs. It's why we took on Big Pharma and won. It's why we took on entrenched oil interests and won. And why we're on track to cut carbon emissions by 40% by 2030. It's why we took on the NRA and beat them by passing the first gun safety law in decades. Across the country, our members have been talking about the benefits of the CHIPS and Science Act and, of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, which became law last month. Americans are already seeing the benefits from these accomplishments. The new laws are creating new investments, new jobs, new opportunities for American families and their communities. It's allowed America to pivot into the industries of tomorrow and lead the world, as opposed to lagging, which so many Americans were worried that we would do. So already a whole host of companies have announced major investments that will help grow our country into the future. Jobs right here in America, not jobs overseas, jobs in industries that have great futures that are not looking backward at the past. For instance, Toyota just announced billions in new investments to start manufacturing batteries for electric and hybrid cars in North Carolina.
Now the video clip that I plugged in as a sound clip here into the show, guys, this is exactly what Joseph and I are talking about. You know, the overspending of the bill, the amount of money going into this, like I said, has nothing to do with spending at all. It has more to do with, Ukraine aid. It has sought another $4.5 billion to support Ukraine's government, which has survived on Western giving. Now, this is said by officials in Kyiv, right? Kyiv, if that's how you pronounce it, in Ukraine, which they need about, Joseph, get this, $5 billion every month just to cover the essential government services to keep its economy functioning. Now, do you think that this is going to be a bipartisan support for the administration's request for both additional military and general economic assistance funding?
That part will be, and I'm to be clear, I am all for helping Ukraine to some degree, but we're broke, people. We're broke.
Yeah.
Where is Europe? That's Europe's problem. Like, Europe spend this money. Now, I'm all for selling them arms they need, but I am not for giving them money. This foreign aid stuff has got to cease and desist.
Yeah, and the Democrats on the left, back to the spending crap that we're talking about, right? The Democrats also have raised objections to permitting the bill. Now, just this past Tuesday night, just last night, Senator Elizabeth Warren, right, Pocahontas, right, declined to rule out blocking a continuing resolution that included the measure which speeds up permitting for fossil fuel projects, right? I know Joseph's probably going to love this part of the conversation. Fossil fuel projects, as well as renewable energy products. Now they want to speed up the permitting, Joseph, for these fossil fuel projects. Why in the hell we're talking about oil now, folks? Why are we still begging Russia, the Middle East, and all over the Middle East for fucking fuel when we have enough damn fuel in this country that's literally under the state of Texas and other states, for that matter, that will last literally a lifetime, if not possibly the next 1,000 years? Why are we continuing to beg the Middle East for fuel when we have it right in the backyard here in America?
They literally want to ease the sanctions and have another Iran deal. The literal terrorist state of Iran that still chants death to America and death to Israel, which obviously is covered in terror strikes coming soon to a city near you. But yeah, why? We wouldn't have to fast track anything now had the Biden administration not destroyed the energy independence Trump gave us.
Well, Joseph, this is the same shit that we've seen under, Republican President George W. Bush in the early 2000s. That's one of the reasons why this whole, ordeal went down, which will, another spoiler, folks. Sorry, I had to give another spoiler. No more spoilers. Mackenzie, please shut me off if I say this, another spoiler. Thank you. Which will be explained in this Sunday about why 9/11 came into play, which is going to come now into play in today's episode, right? Another spoiler here. Okay. That's one of the reasons, Joseph, why 9/11 started in the first place, right? We wanted a oil type of war with the Middle East, right? So there was a lot of rumors, a lot of speculations, a lot of accusations that possibly George W. Bush started this intentionally. Did you see it come out the same way, Joseph?
No, I don't see it that way at all. But yeah, no doubt, Dick Cheney and crew wanted an excuse to go into Iraq, which then, the whole war on terror thing allowed them to do. But the whole Afghanistan versus the Iraq thing are two different things. And we don't want to go into too much regarding 9/11, but the whole idiocy of the Saudi king potentially being behind 9/11 even himself is absurd to me. You've got to remember, Osama bin Laden was a Saudi. He was disowned by his own family. He was stripped of his Saudi citizenship. He recruited the Saudi hijackers and musclemen, knowing full well that the conspiracy theorist mindset would then go to, well, they're all Saudi, so it must have been a Saudi plot. Osama bin Laden was smart in that sense.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just the that's an episode for an episode. Guys, as we conclude here, I first and foremost, I want to thank Joseph for always making the time and the commitment to the show. He's, like I said, he's not only a good friend of the show, but he's a good friend of mine off the air as well. Joseph, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, sir, for always being a part of the show and bringing your expertise in politics here to the show. I want to close out the show with some of these some stories here I hear from your neck of the woods, the backyard there, so to speak, of Detroit, with this new kind of what we're getting into right now, the spending in Detroit. I noticed that there's some spending issues going on in the city of Detroit. Can you elaborate to that a little bit? Or,
well, Detroit has always been, since the 1960s, controlled by the left. It's a one-party rule in Detroit and pretty much even most all of Wayne County. And it's all about stealing from the suburbs to funnel money to Detroit because they can never manage the money. And people will probably remember Detroit literally went through a bankruptcy at one point, and they started to get their act together because they were forced to get their act together. But then, of course, immediately thereafter, the politicians started promising the spending again, regardless of the revenues, and they're spending their way to bankruptcy yet again. They refuse to learn. They refuse to live within their budget, much like the idiots in D.C.
Yeah, you nailed it on the spot, much like the idiots in D.C. A lot of idiots. I agree with President Trump. We need to drain this swamp. I don't know how the hell we're going to do it, but we're going to have to do it some way or another. Guys, as we close out the show, I want to give Joseph the floor here and allow the listeners, if you're not familiar with Joseph M. Lenard, he is the author of Terror Strikes Coming to a City Near You. Now, Joseph, I noticed, in our last conversation we had just a short period a while ago, there's some really, really good deals coming out of that book. Did you want to elaborate to the listeners on some of that?
Well, you had mentioned January 6th and the whole overblown right-wing terrorist false narratives they put out. So I have a press release on that. I have a blog on that. So I'd really like people to check out terrorstrikes.info/press releases and terrorstrikes.info/blogs to read up on the elaboration of what Mike had only briefly mentioned earlier, the whole playing up of January 6th. Now, was there some damage? Yeah. Again, rule of law. Those who actually destroyed property ought to be arrested, ought to be charged, ought to be put away for a short period of time over a property damage thing. But the trumped up charges against all these others who were literally waved into the building by the Capitol Hill police is just ridiculous. And again, it was all about allowing the left to deflect from Antifa and blackline Marxists, literally a whole summer burning down countless American Black communities and Black-owned businesses, rioting, looting, murder. The left is where the violence is, and we all know it. We all see it, no matter how much CNN and MSNBC tries to cover that up and peddle the other false narrative that the right is violent. Literally, Maxine Waters and the squad all screaming about getting in people's faces and, being lawless. They literally had someone who was going to attempt to murder Supreme Court justices. We all know where the violence is. We cannot let them get away with this spin and bullshit that they're trying to peddle now. It's just absurd. And it's amazing to me that anyone who calls themselves an independent, which to me is just another name for a fascocrat, because if you haven't figured out yet that you have to pick a side, the Republicans, it's right in the name, Republic, are for a constitutionally limited republic. The Democrats are for turning the United States into a Democratic Republic of North Korea or a Democrat Republic of China or the Democratic Republic of Russia. Look at Russia. Yeah, Putin, Medved, then Putin again. That's been a dictatorship for decades now. They're not a democratic republic. And that is exactly the type of false democratic republic they want to turn America into.
No, I mean, you nailed it on the spot. Hopefully we can see some of this. I'm told that there's a special hearing coming on September 20th and September 21st with this whole, spending bill, and we all know that the Fed is the federal department is literally setting a path for another, almost 1 point rate rise. I don't even know what's about to come out with that. Joseph, it's been an interesting conversation as always with you, sir. Thank you for coming on. Please close this out, man. Let the listeners know where they can find you. I'm sure that your book that we talked about today will reflect on a lot of not only what we talked about, but what's in the book. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, the important thing for me to leave in closing about terror strikes coming soon to a city near you, it's not just about foreign terrorists. It's about domestic enemies, like the fascocrats, as I call them, destroying America from within. So it's important to point that out. And yeah, you could find more about me at josephmlenard.us or about the book. And like I said, the press releases tab and the blogs tab at terrorstrikes.info. And of course, I hope you'll be interested in buying an autographed copy of the book direct from terrorstrikes.info. Certainly not something you'll get from Books A Million or Barnes & Noble.
Good stuff. Guys, thank you for tuning into today's episode. Remember, guys, I'll mention again, January 11th, we're going to have the Therapy Twins, Joan and Jane, on the 11th, as well as the special episode for the 9/11 21 years special edition episode this Sunday.
Mike, I got to break in. Breaking news.
Sorry,
breaking news. Queen Elizabeth has died at age 96.
Oh, wow.
I'm not a fan of the monarchy, obviously, but she was great for that nation. She was a leader all these years and a great source of stability for that nation. It's a sad day.
Well, thank you for the breaking news, guys. You just heard it from Joseph M. Lenard here. Breaking news, Queen Elizabeth literally passing away as we speak here on the airways. Please give your condolences to the royal family there in England of the passing of the Queen. And please keep their family in your hearts and prayers, guys, as we're just hearing it right now for the first time here on the show. And I'm sure, the media is going to be blown up with the news and everything. Queen Elizabeth now dead at the age of 96. Wow.
All right, well, take care, brother. I love you. God bless. I've got to head off for 2 o'clock tonight.
All right, sounds good. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure